Hi everyone, it's Katie, and this week on the Creative Boom podcast, we're joined by Holly Howard, founder of Ask Holly How. Clever, isn't it? It's a culture-first business consultancy dedicated to helping creatives evolve, grow, and thrive. It sounds right up our street. Holly's approach is refreshingly different. She believes true success lies at the crossroads of self-evolution, business growth, and creativity. And since launching her consultancy in 2012, she's helped over 1,000 businesses to do very well indeed. But what's especially intriguing is that 4 years ago, she left social media entirely. No Instagram, no LinkedIn, no TikTok, and yet she continues to manage just fine without them. She's showing other creatives that they don't have to chase algorithms or force themselves into video content to succeed either. There is another way. Holly recently led a course called Beyond the Feed, Post-Algorithmic Marketing for Growth, designed to relieve us from the pressure of trying to game the algorithm. And it certainly captured my attention because it's something a lot of us are all thinking about in the creative industry right now. She believes that in a sea of sameness, you can reconnect with your creative values and business vision to find success on your own terms. Her course wasn't about abandoning social media entirely, though, which will be happy news to those of you who are not quite ready to give up the gram. But no, it was about expanding your understanding of modern marketing and crafting an impactful strategy that aligns with your business goals. I'm lucky to be able to get a pretty good understanding of the collective mood out there, and I do sense some mutual social media fatigue. And so Holly is perfectly placed to offer us a lifeboat out of that sea of sameness, as she calls it, and a chance to break free from the formula so many of us have been following for so long, but isn't kind of working anymore. And I guess we're going to discover an alternative way to raise our profiles. And with a new course launching in 2025, I thought we'd bring Holly on the show to see exactly what that entails. Well, Holly, I've been really looking forward to this chat because it's on everybody's minds who have, been able to build up their reputations on social media and all the rest of it. So, hello, welcome. We're going to be talking about Beyond the Feed.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great. It's honestly, I came across you, love your website, love the recent course, the recent program that you did, which is now obviously no longer, but you do have similar programs coming up in future. And it was about talking about post-algorithmic marketing for creatives, or not necessarily. You focus just on creatives, is that right?
Yeah, for the most part, definitely.
Oh, it's so interesting. So you must get a really good kind of wide view of what's happening and how people are feeling in the industry out there right now. And you must have created this specific program Beyond the Feed. Can you explain what it actually is and tell us what insight brought you to developing it?
Sure. So Beyond the Feed is a week-long marketing course. I say marketing and sales, and it's really about like the fundamentals of marketing and sales when it comes to entrepreneurship, because it's something that I realized that most entrepreneurs didn't understand. I think especially with the, rise of social media and sort of online operating in the last decade plus, we sort of jumped the gun on a lot of things and we got really wrapped up in algorithmic thinking and instead forgot that there's actually somebody on the other side of everything that we do. There's somebody on the receiving end, a real human being. And they are having an experience of us. And so there's a few reasons why I created it. One, to help people understand, what are those fundamental things that you have to know about marketing and sales to really grow a business? And then two, because I do have such a, broad picture into the creative industry. I've worked with over 1,000 businesses so far and seen inside of them and sort of behind the scenes, and recognizing that a lot of what's happening on social media isn't doing anything for anybody, though people don't necessarily like to admit it. And they also don't like to disclose exactly what it's doing or not doing for them. But I can see it and I know, and I don't want to be, a snake oil salesman and tell people like, yeah, that's a good idea. You should really like spend a lot of time on social media, because I ultimately know, looking at the back ends of people's companies, like the impact that it does or doesn't have.
Yeah, it's kind of, you think that this is where all the eyes are, so you've got to be on there, but it's trying to keep up and kind of keep. And I think all of us have been a bit of a victim to losing the whole point of why we were on there in the first place. Because 10 years ago, it was about making friends and building a network and a community. I mean, I built Creative Boom on Twitter alone, I would say. But now it's like, it's just changed beyond recognition, and they're all encouraging us to do video because obviously TikTok rules. And yeah, you can just sort of dive into all these things and they just might not be right for you, or you might not be doing the right approach. So it's good to take a step back, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I say, like, if you love to do video and like that's your thing, by all means you can certainly incorporate it. I think where people tend to get into a lot of trouble is when they think that it's the thing that they have to do to meet people or to build their business. And when we get into sort of that mind space, like, oh, I have to do this, then we're probably gonna hit some roadblocks.
Yeah, because if you're not enjoying it, then how will your audience enjoy it? We have that sort of rule on Creative Boom. If we're going to write about something, we've got to feel passionate about it, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, for sure. You have to feel, I use the word enthusiastic, like you have to be enthusiastic about what you're putting out into the world, because if you're not, it's going to be unsustainable. Like, even if I've had students or clients that'll like do something. I like to pick on like Instagram Reels, where they'll like do Instagram Reels or they'll do TikTok, and they'll like have a little spike and they'll be like, ooh, like they'll get really into it. But then it's not sustainable. Like, they can't sustain that level of engagement. And then there's a real like letdown that happens.
Yeah, it's like the little kind of nice endorphins that we get and then buzz. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is working after, years of it not. I mean, what was it, 2016 when Facebook completely kind of changed its algorithm, and whole communities of, 100,000 plus, you're lucky if you get one like on a post on Facebook now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
It is wild. It's frustrating. How dare they give us these amazing free tools and then, turn around and change the goalposts later on down the line, to survive and all the rest of it. It's not like these huge platforms cost so much to run.
Yeah. I love, how dare they give us these amazing free tools?
Yeah. How dare they be in charge, Bring it back. We want our free exposure back. But the interesting thing about it all is that I guess we follow trends, don't we? And we've never kind of done this before. I've only just started embracing video myself, and you kind of look around and it's easy to see why people would fall into the trap of just doing what everybody else is doing. For pieces to camera where they say, "Oh, I've got some top tips, and here we go." But they're like, I don't know, a coffee brand, or they're selling something completely that just doesn't really fit what they are, and then you call it a sea of sameness, and it really is. And it seems to have all happened at the same time as I'm getting this kind of social media fatigue vibe. Are you getting something similar?
Yeah, I think people are definitely fatigued of it, because I think it's sort of like, it's never ending in a way, right? Like, I love when people are like, feel like they've figured out how to game the algorithm and then it changes on them again. Like they feel like good and superior and then it changes on them again. And it's kind of a never ending pursuit, like if you think that that's the way to meet your audience. But I think what's so sad about it, to your point, that phrase, the sea of sameness, like, that it's also just flattened everybody. I think, one of the reasons I haven't been on social media in 4 years, I left 4 years ago. And so, and I just didn't find it that interesting. Like, I think that there are some beautiful creators on social media and some interesting people. But what is interesting about it is, like, in order to stay relevant, you sort of have to flatten yourself, and you have to, abide by sort of a recipe, and that gets pretty boring after a while. And that is what I think is super interesting about it.
Well, they're all designed to keep us on there for as long as possible, aren't they? And it's amazing how they come out with these, the CEOs will come on and say, now, if you want to stay relevant on Instagram or whatever, this is what you need to do. And it's like, what? I'm running a
Yeah.
business over here. Just
Yeah.
go away.
Well, I think too, what it doesn't take into account is like who is actually your audience? Like who are you actually trying to speak to and what do they actually want to hear? Because I think there's a difference between like gaming an algorithm and connecting deeply with a community that you're wanting to engage with.
Yeah, exactly. When I started doing video on Creative Boom, I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to be over here doing my weird thing and I'm just going to be myself. And that's one way to tackle it, isn't it? You just kind of really think about what your business is about, the kind of people that you're talking to. Just as you say, I know that people who follow Creative Boom won't necessarily like anything that's too polished or forced, perhaps.
Mhm.
And it's all a big guess, isn't it? We are guessing a lot of the time about what we're targeting, and we can use the data, we can do surveys, we can look at our analytics. But at the end of the day, it's a gut feeling, isn't it? It's something that you have to kind of think, yeah, this is who I'm talking to, and I'm going to really lean into that, because otherwise you're just going to be firing off in all directions.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually like the problem about modern commerce. Like when you think about how things used to work in the olden days, when commerce was actually like in the town square and you would have actual real relationships with the people that you bought things from or that you sold things to, and it went beyond just that transaction. And then we sort of move online and everything has become so transactional. Where to your point, like well, the reality is like there is somebody else on that other side. Like how much time we spend getting to know who our audience is, what their habits actually are, what they like and dislike, where our product or service fits into their life. What's the life that's happening around when people are listening to Creative Boom? Are they also washing the dishes? Are they going to pick their kids up from school? Like what is that life that's happening and who are these humans? And understanding that often opens people's eyes to the reality of like, oh, I actually don't even need to be doing all this other stuff because they don't care about that. If I just talk to them in this way, that keeps them engaged.
And when you say talk to them in this way, do you mean necessarily on social media or somewhere else?
Somewhere else altogether, like maybe it's on social media, you might find that, but I'm going to guess because once I start digging into people's companies, like it's not on social media. Most people, it's off of social media. It's how maybe you run a newsletter, maybe you have live events, maybe there's even some sort of snail mail communication that happens, maybe there's just offline community building, like whatever it is, where people can really engage.
That's great. So we'll come on to that in a minute, but I'm interested to know how things have been for you since you left social media 4 years ago. Did it improve things, make things worse? Did you notice any difference?
Oh yeah, huge difference. It's been awesome. I mean, I love not being on social media. It's amazing. I can't like I could talk about it all day how much I love it. Like and my husband and I both left at the same time and we're just like then we'll have just have moments together where we're like, can you believe people still do this? Like it's 2018. Like what's wrong with them?
Oh, you're so smug. Come on. We're over here just still scrabbling around saying, love me, love me.
Totally. And I think what's been so wonderful is like you get your own psyche back. It's not about it's so funny. It's like people forget that like there are plenty of ways to stay updated about like we forget that news existed before Twitter. Sometimes people are like, but if I'm not on Twitter, I won't get the news. I'm like, well, actually for hundreds of years, news spread without Twitter, like and it still does. And I think it's
From
just
reputable sources.
from reputable sources. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, so it's like just being able to focus on things more and do deep dives with things more and not feel distracted to hear my own inner voice and let that guide me and be in my own experience of the world. And again, not because I'm ignoring what's going on around me, but because I don't need to constantly scroll and like and click on things for hours at a time.
God, it's liberating. And there'll be loads of creatives listening to this probably thinking, God, is that an option? Is that an actual, could I actually do that? I think the risk is that I hear that they fear that they will not stay relevant, not stay in touch with the community, not win clients. And in your case, 4 years off social media, you're, I assume, busier than ever.
Yeah, I'm definitely busier than ever. And I think that, I talk to especially a lot of creatives, like maybe you use it as like a portfolio, right? Like maybe you keep your recent work up there because you sort of see it as a portfolio. And I say to people, like, that's fine. One, if you don't want to use it, you can always, there's so many programs now where you can like front load all of that stuff and just have it uploading onto social media. Because the way that I talk to people about social media who still want to use it, I'm like, all social media really is it's like window dressing, right? So going back to like the old timey days, like if you had a brick and mortar store, you're going to put things in the window. And in a way that like, that's sort of what social media is, but it's not actually what's going to like get the client on board. They might check your window display and like it and come in, but it's not going to seal the deal. It's not going to win you the job. And, but it's not the only place. Like if your portfolio is on your website, that's fine too. I don't think anybody really looks at follower count because there's so many myths that or so many things that have debunked all of that. Like in the publishing industry, there was a huge um, whatever you want to call it, like debacle because they signed all of these authors that had huge followings and then all of a sudden they sold no books and they're like, oh, right, followers don't actually mean sales. So a lot of that is happening in other industries too.
Yeah, I think so. It can sometimes prove lucky. There was a lovely illustrator that we featured last week on Creative Boom, Con McHugh. He did a beautiful project for the Bristol Jazz Festival here in the UK. And it went viral on Instagram in 2023, can you believe? And he gained a lot of recognition for that and a lot of followers. I mean, he went from nothing to quite a lot overnight, and he ended up becoming the official creative director. I think he was involved creatively with the same festival the year later. So he benefited massively from that. But I hear of stories like that less and less because there are just so many people now and so much work and so much conversation and noise. So that is kind of like it's not the norm, basically. It's the exception for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like winning the lottery, right? We can equate that sort of thing to like winning the lottery. And sure, you can like hope that you're going to win the lottery and it's going to happen to somebody. Somebody's going to win the lottery, absolutely. But is that like a career strategy? Probably not.
Well, look how I found you. It wasn't through LinkedIn. It wasn't through Twitter. It wasn't through Instagram. It was through a connection, a real live connection, who recommended you and said, you need to check out this lady because she's fascinating, interesting, got this amazing stuff going on. Sure, I'll go and check her out. Went on your website, which is your kind of main shop window. And here we are. And it's a great website. And you can, I think that is, you've worked on your SEO, you've worked on your branding, your portrait picture, all of these things. It's not necessarily going back to basics, but it's remembering how powerful that alone is, along with maybe a newsletter that you build up and then you create your own audience, something that you're in control of and nobody at Meta or X can ever sort of interfere with, really.
Yeah. And I think just going back to your example, like I don't know that person, but I know in my own experience with people that I've known where these things sort of happen, where they'll have sort of viral moments or whatnot, it always comes down to their relationships too. Like offline, who are their relationships? Who are the people? And like that is actually more impactful than the like online viral moment. Because even if that person had a viral moment, if they weren't good at what they did with their relationships with this institution where they built this thing or, whatever it is, you can't continue that level of success.
No, you can't. It's really difficult. And it's actually interesting to see some of the more famous creatives on Instagram who did very well back in the day are now sort of adopting video and, like the rest of us Muppets, chasing the end of the rainbow, hoping for a pot of gold. So it's one of those. I mean, what happened when you did this program? Are you allowed to sort of share a bit of the insights from the people that came to you and worked with you during that sort of course?
Yeah, I think the people that come are looking for an experience where they're not trying to like game an algorithm. Like they just want a sustainable business. They just want a business that's going to sustain them, that's going to be something that they can engage with in the long term. And they also recognize that like it takes more than a viral social media moment to have to have longevity in business. Like so again, even if those things sort of do happen, I think the thing about that is like we'll be on to the next viral moment next week, and then that person will have to think about how they're continuing to cultivate relationships. So the people that come are really ready to have, I would say, like a less sort of intoxicating relationship to their business and a more stable relationship to their business, and just understand long term like how they can market themselves and grow.
Have they all left social media, or is it sort of a mixed bag?
I would say it's a mixed bag. I have some clients that have like fully left social media. And then I will say like many people are just too scared to do it. They just think that like they can't survive without it. But that they sort of end up rounding things out and doing things in addition to it, and sort of moving away from the focus on it, or, the prioritization of it. But yeah, I would say like people are still really scared to leave the conversation.
Yeah. And I suppose let's think of like an illustrator, and they've got, a good Instagram following, and they're on LinkedIn, and they've got, they've left Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. They're now on Blue Sky, but they're just not sort of getting, moving forward. They're still working a part-time job, and they're really talented, but they are only doing a little bit of illustration work 1 or 2 days a week, and they really want to make it their full-time profession because it's their passion. I mean, saying to somebody like that, leave social media, it's terrifying. But I want to know, what would you say to them about like their customer experience and how they might like, I don't know, achieve that kind of stage of their career where they can leave that part-time job? And what would it take? Is it simply going out to more events and actually meeting people in real life?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's first a few things. I feel like we're like in a case study. We'll do a case study, Katie.
Mm.
We're going to do a case study.
I
Is
feel like we
this
need like a sound effect.
is this illustrator? Let's just like get a little more specific. What is this
Oh, yeah.
illustrator? Are they illustrating for like publications? Are they illustrating for like products? Is it a combination of everything? Like what are
Oh,
we?
you put me on the spot. Okay, let's call her Lindsay. And we're
Okay,
going to say that she is really wanting to get into editorial illustration. She wants to have her work on the front of the New Yorker. That's the kind of like the
great.
goal, the amazing, thing that she's reaching for. And she's had some success, had some good clients, but she's not signed to an illustration agency. And she's wondering whether that is something she should do to get to that, ultimate
Okay.
goal.
Perfect. And we want that goal for Lindsay. We want her on the cover of the New Yorker. So my feedback to that is like, yeah, you can post on all these websites, but I promise you, like, especially now, I was just talking to somebody in PR about this. Like, editors are so saturated with information. Journalists are so saturated with information that they too are like starting to put the blinders on because it's overwhelming the amount. I have a publicist that I was interviewing. I think she said for like every journalist, there's something like more than 10 PR people that exist for every one journalist or something like that. And so you can just
Oh my
imagine
God.
like what editors, editors themselves are going through too, sort of at the top of all of that. So I tell people like they are not sitting here. Maybe they've seen your work on social, but anymore, like they want a relationship, they want a referral, they want just like we connected. They want so and so said this person, just go talk to them. You just made their job so much easier when it comes in that way. So to Lindsay, we say like, okay, Lindsay, what are you doing to nurture the relationships with all the editors that you want to be working with? What's below the New Yorker? Like, how are you stepping your way up? Like, get in with these editors, get experience, build the relationships. Also, to your point about LinkedIn, those editors move from those smaller publications to the New Yorker, right? To here, to there. So make sure when you work with anybody, you connect with them on LinkedIn and you stay connected, like, and that you nurture those relationships, that you really care, that you see what they're doing every couple of months. You reach out, you say hello, you ask them what projects they're working on. Like, that's that time is going to matter way more than that you're just posting on all of these sites. And that is really hard for people because people will always tell me like, well, I'm a visual communicator. I'm not like a verbal communicator, and that relationship building is really hard. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but that is business. Like business is relationship building. And so like learning those skills, those communication skills, don't just post on social media, do a little something and snail mail it to the person that you really want to be working with at the New Yorker. Write them a letter, like do something that's going to help you sort of stand out, just to go back to that phrase in the sea of sameness, like do that. They might just put that on your desk. You might not hear from them right away. And that's another thing I tell people, and that they eventually learn, like it is a long game. Relationships are long games. I have people all the time where they're like, oh my God, that person I've been working on for 2 years, that nurturing that relationship. And we finally had a job together. And it's like, yeah, because that is how long it takes. And we live in a world where we think it's supposed to be instant. I'll post this thing, you'll see it, you'll call me next week, and I'll have a job. And it just does not work like that.
Well, speaking as an editor, I get about 10 messages a day because I accept everyone on LinkedIn. I don't know why. I mean, I'm just too nice. But I don't know. It's different for me because I'm building a community and an audience and a brand, and it helps me to have, lots of connections, which is great. I'm very flattered when anybody adds me. But most of the time it's great. But a lot of the time it's, hi, I want this. And I'm like, oh my God, why do I keep accepting connections with everyone? And it's not me being rude. It's just, I'm trying to do 1,000,001 different things in my day. And it's like, 10 to 10 on a Monday morning. I've got a job list as long as my arm, and they want to know if they can take me for a coffee in London, which is 2 hours away on the train.
Yeah.
And 2 hours back.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to take me for a coffee and pick my brains? It's like, what? Come on. Think about something else, please try and not, because everybody does that. Can I pick your brains and take you for coffee?
100%. And I always, like, we talk about this in Beyond the Feed, where I say the most important thing you have to ask them is what's in it for them? What's in it for Katie to get on a train for 2 hours to go? And that flip of perspective, people are like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, then take a lot of time to think about this before you reach out to them. And this is what I mean about, like, there is somebody else on the other side. And I do feel like social media has made that, like, I need this from you, or I need that, or like, and instead, it's like, that is not how relationship building works, And I appreciate, like, here we are, two women, like, I appreciate directness, and I appreciate everybody, like, being aware of their needs and wanting to get their needs met. But we've lost sort of, I had a guest lecturer, her name is Brooke Ward. She taught Beyond the Feed with me last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. But she titled her presentation like The Art of a Good Conversation, because she was like, marketing should be a good conversation, and we don't know how to have them anymore.
It's true. I think there's a few manners that have been lost. It's kind of, because I suppose we've lost that real connection where we actually see somebody in real life. We've maybe kind of lost that kind of, oh, that's an actual person I'm talking to. And it's just a subconscious thing. I mean, I was on the floor January to June suffering from a back injury. And the amount of times people would get in touch and say, hey, how's the back? Are you any better? Oh, but can you also do this for me? And I'd be lying on the floor, running a business from a mobile phone. And now, getting up now and again to go to my standing desk for the 10 seconds that I could stand it before the pain kicked in. And then I'd be on the floor again. And they're saying, can you do this for me? I'm like, come on, guys. You've got to just get outside. They've gone inside of themselves and they cannot see beyond. And that's what frustrates me. It's like, remember, I'm a human being. I'm not Superwoman, although I come close on many occasions.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that human aspect does really get lost, or this idea that, like, things take time, like,
yeah.
How far along is Lindsay in her career, and what are her expectations about when she is going to get that New Yorker cover? Because I think, just to go back to your example of the viral moment, the thing that I say too is, like, journalists love stories about overnight success, right? I always say, like, You are never going to read an article in the New York Times about that entrepreneur that just had a steady practice of doing this certain thing and was able to build a sustainable business over 2 decades and live the lifestyle of their choosing, because it's not clickbait worthy. We're not going to write about it, you know? And so, but then we're just exposed to these articles about like the 93-year-old influencer on TikTok who's having a viral moment, you know, and then everybody's like, I have to do that, you know, like, and it's kind of warped the way that we see the landscape.
Or that little baby hippo that's everywhere right now. I mean, what did he do? It's not fair. God. Honestly, I'm just gonna have someone film me eat some food from a bowl and start biting the, you know, guy's leg. I'll be a sensation.
Yeah.
It's just remembering, isn't it, that at the end of the day, we're talking to other people online, and it takes time to nurture anything and build a relationship. But you're so right. What's in it for the other person? Because it's got to be a bit of give and take.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You really have to think about that. Like what's in it for them? You know, like how does it
Mm.
benefit them to connect with you? How does it benefit them to engage with you? You know, it's important questions.
Yeah, and editors, if people are looking to get into magazines, we're so swamped. Just make our jobs easy. Just make it so easy. Don't say, hey, here's my portfolio. Say, hello, I have just completed this amazing mission. I've just traveled around the world and done this amazing project, or I have thoughts on this that I'd love to talk about, or whatever it is that you think would work with that magazine, but just do some of their job for them. And then they go, oh, this is great.
That's what I tell people. I'm like, the easier you can make the other person's job, the more likely they're going to be to engage. But yeah, if we're like just reaching out to say hello or share a portfolio, and that's what social media is, and that's what I mean. Like people don't have the time anymore to sit there and there's so much to get through.
There really is, and just so many people doing the same things. So, with that in mind, how do you stand out if whether you've like decided to come off social media or you're staying on there? There's this kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a collective thing. Maybe it is. Maybe we're all feeling a bit like this. But I keep hearing about finding one's voice and how do you sort of stand out and. Well, the only way you can stand out is by being your usual wacky self and nobody else can be like you and all this stuff. I mean, we're guilty of putting out all those messages as well. We're just trying to help, we're trying to help the creative industries. And it's like, well, how do you do that? I think a lot of us we're working very hard. There's a danger that we lose ourselves at times because we get so engrossed in our work and trying to pay the bills. How do we find this voice of ours? Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to dig into with that question. I think first, just starting with the phrase like stand out, maybe it's even recognizing that we don't have to stand out. And what I mean by that is like when Beyond the Feed starts, the first thing we talk about are like, what are your goals? What are your financial goals? How much money are you trying to make in a year? How much money do you need to put in your pocket to live the life that you want to live? Like understanding from a financial perspective first what it is that you're trying to achieve. Because once we understand that, then we start to say, okay, well, based on that, what do your marketing goals need to be then? How many projects do you need to work on? I'm just sort of gearing this towards the creative audience. So like how many projects do you need to work on? How many clients do you need to engage? How many prints do you need to sell? Whatever it is. Then when people they look at that and they're like, oh, okay, like I need to work with 20 clients here. We're like, okay, awesome. What's your typical conversion rate? Oh, okay. So we do a little bit more digging into their data and find out like, I convert about 50% of the people that reach out to me. Okay, great. So now we have to engage with 40 people a year. What are all the ways we can engage with 40 people a year if we think 50% of those have the potential to convert? And that already then people are like, oh, I already have a lot more clarity. I don't need to be like spraying all this stuff out into the world. These are the relationships I'm going to focus on. These are the things I'm going to be doing. Right. And they're like, all of a sudden I have this clarity of like, oh, I don't need to spray things all over just like random or like a standout in the noisy world. But I need these relationships and I need these really tight. And I see that this person really refers a lot. So I'm just going to nurture that relationship, and like all of a sudden the wheels will start turning for people. So I think this idea of like standing out has more to do with like our ego, I think, and like how we're seen by our peers. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, look at who's actually following you on social media. Probably not people that are going to engage with your product. It's people that are lurking and spying on you and want to see what you're doing. Fine, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, like
Those bastards.
it doesn't really matter, but and we have like a sort of inflated sense of like what these numbers actually mean. So I think that like helping people recognize that like you don't have to sort of stand out in that noisy world, but there are other ways that you can engage once you're really clear. It really helps you put the blinders on and just stay focused on what it is that you could be doing and you need to be doing. And this goes back to like, I taught at the university level here in the States, and I do think that universities do students a real disservice not teaching them communication skills or like, how do you manage a client relationship? How do you manage client communications? Like I've had to terminate relationships with creative agencies who are poor communicators, miss deadlines, don't communicate why work is late, don't, and like, it's not the quality of the work that's going to be more detrimental, like the lack of that skill set, or they can't communicate to me the benefit of their work. Why is it beneficial to work with you as an illustrator versus this other person? And if somebody doesn't have the answer to that question, if they don't know why it's more beneficial to work with them, if they don't understand the editor's needs, that newspaper's needs, that publication's needs, they're going to have a really hard time, securing the job. So all of those sort of other skills are way more important.
Yeah, they hugely are. And you're raising a great point. I mean, because we're moving nicely away from social media now. And we're talking about all the other stuff, the marketing, how we sort of focus on those 40 potential clients. And for Lindsay, let's carry on with Lindsay because it helps. She has been thinking, God, up until this point, I have to do all these videos and draw and sketch and actually just listening to this podcast now, she's gone, oh, okay, that's brilliant. I don't have to do all that. I can just focus on this and that's actually going to get me results. It's a considered focus where I'm not scrambling around in the dark trying to figure out what to do next. The same as everybody else, by the way. It's more actually there's a goal and there's a KPI and there's an actionable plan.
Yeah. And to that, you're making me think, Katie, like even then I'm like, okay, well, if Lindsay wants, to connect with a certain editor, I'm like, go out of LinkedIn and find out who's that editor's assistant, like who's the person that's probably like looking at that editor's emails or like, one step down or like, we all know in the publishing world or the creative agency world, like there's layers to that organizational structure. And, like I always tell people like, who are sort of the lower people on the rung that might be more willing to engage with you and who can you build relationships with there? And then they might tell the people that they're reporting up to about your work. And so even that is like a much better use of time than just, again, constantly blasting out on social.
Yeah, definitely. And in the age of AI, I think a lot of the time the conversation turns to the importance of value that creatives have because, there'll be a lot of creatives out there who are bad communicators and aren't retaining clients because they haven't got the basics of business down well. And they're going to kind of probably suffer the most if jobs are replaced in future. If some freelancers win over them further down the line. So it's about getting those basics right, which aren't basics. They're fundamentals to running a successful business. You need to be able to build relationships and be a great communicator and manage deadlines and keep in touch with the client, tell them what's happening in the process and tell them, even have the guts to tell them where that you think they might be going wrong and then come up with a solution, which is a skill. Which, I was lucky to learn working for another agency, but not a lot of these people get the chance to do that. They're probably straight out of university or college and they're just, learning the ropes as they go. It's really tough.
It is really tough. And that's what I mean. Like, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in university education to sort of change, what we teach and what's important for students to learn alongside of their creative education. And to your point about AI, like, I love AI. I mean, I think AI is going to be so transformative for creatives in a really good way if they understand how to utilize it, because you can't take away the like human touch, and you can't take away somebody's like um, inspiration and sort of like the everything that sort of got them to this moment that they're creating this thing. But what AI can do is it can write that client email for you. It can write that proposal for you. It can, oh, you're having a tough time with that editor and you don't know how to respond. Tell ChatGPT, it will come up with a brilliant response for you. Like, and that's where I feel like creatives really need to embrace this type of technology, and it can help them immensely. Oh, you don't know how to project manage out this new gig that you got? Put it into ChatGPT. It will help you create a calendar for, how you should set the milestones, when you should communicate with the client. Like there's so much support it can give you.
It can really make you efficient, and it can boost you, and it can be like having a little mini kind of creative team in your little home office, can't it? It's great.
Totally.
Nobody's saying that. We're not arguing against all the wider issues, the kind of, the things that may affect the creatives in this wonderful community. But I'm with you. I think it's more of a kind of tool that we will use rather than something that will replace us in the long term. And so Lindsay has come out of university. She went to a great university. She's a very talented illustrator. She's going to have to meet this girl. And she's lacking in certain kind of business skills. So would you then, I suppose you will, because you run these kind of courses, would you say the next step would be to do something like this, go on a program, a course, and just get to know, marketing? Really, it's an underrated skill, I would say, for freelancers.
Yeah, definitely. That would 100% be my feedback, is like go understand like what your needs are. That's what, learning about business is. Like just going back to what I was saying, like what are your financial needs? Like what are you trying to do here? What are you trying to create in the world? What's the long-term vision here for the studio? Like I understand that we want a New Yorker cover, but like, well, what else? Like what are we known for that the New Yorker wants to work with us, and what comes after that? Like sort of building out everything else around this is what's really important.
Do you encourage things like side projects and starting something a bit different, or are those kind of days gone? Because it's quite difficult, isn't it, to do something new?
I think it depends. Like, yeah, I know where creatives are like, I do my client work and then I sort of have this work that I like to do over here on my own. Um, I mean, I think it's always important to be passionate about what you do. I think a big mistake that we make is when people are like, well, I have to take this job because that's what pays the bills, but my creative work is what I do over here. And I'm like, well, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's like but if you're not doing the marketing work, everything that we've talked about, you're probably going to have a harder time finding where those things converge. And so you're just taking sort of what comes at you instead of building your own sort of reality and your own future. So I do encourage people like you have to stay creative. I mean, you have to stay connected to that inspiration and that creative spark.
It's dead interesting, isn't it? Because there'll be loads of creatives out there who aren't even on social media, haven't really barely used it, who are flying, doing really well and making good money. I know that's the case. And it's also not about necessarily being on the front cover of the New Yorker either. What is success? That's a good question. What's that defined as? Do you have to be on that cover? I mean, is success instead just basically becoming a full-time illustrator? Would Lindsay be ecstatic to be paying her bills and making some good money?
Yeah, well, that's one of the questions I ask people. This is sort of, we're getting into this idea of like visioning, sort of visioning what your future is, visioning what you want this thing to look like. And I say like the most important question you can ask is, how do you want to be spending your day? Because ultimately, like how you want to be spending your day is what creates your experience of your life. And even sometimes I think people have these grand visions and then they're like, we start to sort of break it down like, oh, well, that means you need like a team of 5, or that means this, or that means that. And they're like, well, wait a second. I don't want to be managing 5 people, or like, I don't want this. And you're like, okay, well, these are good realizations to have now and to go back to the drawing board and really think about what it is that you want to create and that's going to actually fulfill you.
It just saves so much time. You're not faffing about, saying, oh, right, okay. You're actually you're starting from the goal and moving backwards. And then
Hmm.
saying, okay, well, I didn't realize that that would involve that. Oh, I don't want that. That doesn't suit me. Let's do this over here instead. It opens up a world of possibilities. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And poor Lindsay, she's feeling overwhelmed now listening to all this. What's a good place for her to start? She's sick of X anyway, and she wants to get off Facebook. She's been on there for years, but never really posted anything. What's the first step she can take in kind of, finding the next kind of step, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that Lindsay is keeping good financial records. So maybe she has good, I don't know what you all use over there. Do you use QuickBooks or what do you
We've heard of
use?
QuickBooks. Yeah, a lot
Okay,
of
is that
people
not
use Zero. I
zero?
personally use Free Agent.
Okay. So I hope that Lindsay is like keeping good financial records and can have a really, reflective moment with herself about what her needs are and what she's trying to create in the world. But then I think after that, for her to start looking at who are the humans she's actually trying to engage with, where are they, and how can she start to nurture relationships with them?
This is exciting because it just makes it, well, that's an attainable goal, isn't it? She can do something before Christmas and say, I'm going to just focus on these three people first and foremost. And I
Yeah.
suppose when you start doing that as well, you can say, well, oh, my about page, if it's going to appeal to these three people, then I need to rewrite it so it appeals to them and not necessarily just anyone. And then it all kind of starts to fall into place. This is what I love. I love it all falls into place with this one, bit of, the light goes off and you're like, oh, yes, it makes sense now.
Yeah, and what you're describing, Katie, is literally how Beyond the Feed is structured. Because day one, we look at goals. Day two, we look at who, right? Who are the people? Day three, we look at messaging. Because I always say, I'm like, don't create messaging if you don't know who the who is that you're actually speaking to. Because just to this example you gave, it's like we just like put things out into the world, and I'm like, who is this supposed to resonate with? Like, who are you targeting? And we don't know. And then once you know who that is, you start to have these epiphanies like, oh, I should put it this way, or like they would be interested in hearing this, or like this is what's important to them.
Exactly. And it can determine what clients you put on your about page, like even whether you have a sort of softer, more conversational tone or something that sounds a little bit more professional, written by somebody else in the third person. It all helps. It's all very kind of subtle, but it will all fit in with the people you're targeting. And it's then going to sort of bounce off everything else, because then you'll say, well, are these editors that I'm trying to target, are they on TikTok? Well, probably not. So why am I spending 3 hours a week doing videos and editing myself when really it's just like some really nice people that are following me who like my work, but they're not the actual people who are going to pay my bills?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why I say, like, if you love doing that and that's just like something you love to do, then do it. Just do it with the intention that it's not going to bring work to you, like, but if that's, something you like to do during the week, fine, but be intentional and know, but it's not creating a return for you. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's it, isn't it? That's the wisdom. It's not giving you anything in return. So maybe ease off and maybe think about doing less or nothing at all. Or maybe just have a break and see what happens. Have a sort of A/B testing moment, have 2 months off, see if it makes any difference whatsoever to your workload, and actually at the same time focus on building these relationships and see what happens. It could be magic. So what about messaging then? So if we've talked about goals and we've talked about, what's happening next in terms of what, who you want actually going to have a relationship with, how do you sort of work with people and say, this is how you get your messaging right?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One of the most important things I tell people when it comes to messaging relates to the idea of the hero's journey. Do you know Joseph Campbell, the hero's
Mm,
journey, the myth? So the idea
yeah.
is like in the hero's journey, there is a hero, right, that's like set out on this adventure, hits this really rough patch, goes into sort of the dark. It's always like put in the circle, like goes down under darkness, has to like sort of overcome this thing and then comes out the other side. So there's a hero, but always on the hero's journey, there's a guide. So this hero meets the guide. The guide is sort of the one that delivers the wisdom, helps them, and then, they're able to go out into the world and be the hero. What is interesting about that is that when we think about this, when we're doing our messaging, do you think that we're the hero or do you think that we're the guide?
This is a clever one. You put me on the spot. I suppose we're probably, you would initially think you were the hero, but actually, in actual fact, you're the guide.
You're the guide. Yeah. And
Mm.
this is like so the reverse of social media, right? Because in social media, what do we have to do? Especially to game the algorithm. We got to take pictures of ourselves. We got to put ourselves forward. We got to take videos of ourselves. Like it's all about us,
I'm
right?
fabulous, darling.
Right. And again, if you love to do that, do it. But you're not being the guide. And going back to this phrase about your business exists to make somebody else's job easier. And you're the guide in all of this. So if your messaging isn't, structured to convey that, to convey the value, or the other phrase I use, the benefits of your work, to this person that's the hero. So in Lindsay's case, the editor's the real hero. She's the guide. If we don't structure our messaging in that way, it's not going to resonate. And it's not going to we're not going to have that emotional response as the hero reading that messaging. And so that's where people need to flip. And all of a sudden when they're like, I'm the guide, like, oh my gosh, well, what value do I bring? And like, how does my work benefit how would my illustrations benefit the New Yorker having it on the cover? Like, I don't know. I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, so that's where you come from. It's really clever because it kind of makes it really easy to figure out everything else that follows. So her about page copy, Lindsay, bless her, she's probably said up until this point, hi, I'm Lindsay and I'm an illustrator based in Manchester, UK, and this is what I specialize in. She could flip that and write something like, are you looking for, whimsical, handmade looking illustration for your editorial projects? I'm your gal. That type, well, maybe not like that, but you know what I mean. Hang on, I'll just go on ChatGPT.
Well, I was going to say to your point about ChatGPT, I used AI to teach the class this year, and people were loving it because as we were building, like when we decided who is this editor, right? So we're like, okay, Lindsay, who's this editor? And we had Lindsay work with AI to come up with the psychographics of this editor. And then we're like, okay, based on these psychographics, what's the messaging that we write that conveys the benefits? And this is where ChatGPT or Claude, whatever tool you like to use, is incredible. It's an incredible tool to help people. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about writing about my work in that way. Or like, yeah, they're right. That is the benefit. This is what my illustration does. So it is really helpful.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you kind of going through that process, you then start to see it from a completely different point of view, and it's all about removing your ego. It's all about figuring out the needs of somebody else, and then you just work backwards. It's just magic. It's so
Yeah.
obvious, but it's not, unless you work in marketing. So you're saying Lindsay, who's fed up with X, she's fed up with Instagram, she hates TikTok now because she's just not getting any traction. She can just, if she wants to, she can just leave that all behind and then just do this over here and focus on that and see how she goes. And she'll be all right. And she'll survive and she'll still be relevant.
Yeah, I say as long as you're not hiding, it's that social media is not the only place to show up in the world. It's like sometimes because social media is the only thing that people do, when they go to leave it, they think that they're not going to be doing anything at all. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there are all of these other things I actually probably should have been doing for a long time that I just disregarded, thinking like that this thing was going to give me exposure.
I suppose it's going to be easier for a Lindsay that was based in sort of New York City or close to than it is for a Lindsay who's based out in, I don't know, name somewhere in America that's out in the sticks. Like, does she necessarily have to go to real life events and meet people in real life? Or can she still achieve that dream without being based in a creative hub?
Yeah, I mean, I have a brilliant student. Her name is Molly Fitzpatrick, and she's in Ohio, which really is the middle of the country here. I adore Molly, and she has a thriving creative career as a consultant and working with brands. She's a textile designer, and then she has her own line called Ditto House. And But Molly's a relationship builder. She is really excellent at nurturing relationships and building relationships and her creative, and she prioritizes her creativity and her creative expression. And I think she's a brilliant example of somebody who has a thriving career. And I think Molly still uses social media, but she's not like a everyday kind of poster and things like that. But yeah, I think she's a brilliant example of that.
And did she work with you to figure that out, or is it just something?
I'm going to credit Molly and say, like, I think she's just good at relationship building. But yeah, she's a student of mine, and she has her products are in MoMA, so she's got in the MoMA design store, she's got products there. So she's kind of
Wow,
achieved like the pinnacle. But yeah, and this is what I mean. Like, it's all about relationships.
it is. What do you do if you're an introvert, Holly? What do you do if you're very shy and you struggle to sort of reach out to people, cold call, or just generally spark a conversation?
Yeah. I think that if you're a genuine, like I think there's a difference between like I would consider myself an introvert. Like nobody
Hmm.
loves to be in bed at 7 o'clock in the evening more than I do. Like I love it. But I think there's a difference between like being introverted and then like, yeah, if you are really, really shy, like even just building a relationship is a very scary thing. And I tell people like, you should actually go to an improv class. Like building communication skills isn't just a business skill, it is a human skill, it is a relationship skill. Your friendships will get better, your romantic relationships will get better, everything will improve if you work on your communication. And if you're shy, one of the best first steps you could do is to find an improv class. And there's so many like improv, at least in the States here. There's like improvs for creatives, improvs for business. Like it's really a thing. I'm like, do something to start stepping outside of your sort of shell, because you will have to learn how to do that, but there's a lot of fun ways to do it. And then therapy is great. I send a lot of people to therapy. I'm like, you should go talk to people about why you have these fears, why you're having these feelings. It's totally normal, but you can also work through it. So that would be my
You mean we've got to
recommendation.
work on ourselves? Us
I
Brits don't
know.
work on ourselves. We're not crazy like you
Oh
lot
yeah,
over there in the States.
that's true.
No, I mean, I'm joking. It's a disclaimer there. I don't want to get any complaints, but it's a good thing. And actually, the culture's changing here, and that counselling is being normalised more here
Yeah.
in the United Kingdom, and it's good. It's really healthy, and it's a great idea. It's a great shout. It's not something I considered really, that people might want to work on themselves before, to build confidence and get to know who they are, and before they launch themselves out into the world, with a cannon.
Yeah, and that's where I think that like if you have that reflective time too, you'll find the ways that building relationships works for you. Like I said, like I'm not a big networker, but I have a huge client and student base because I build relationships in much more intimate ways.
You must be very busy going and doing a lot of stuff all the time. And so what do you do yourself? Do you go out to real events, or do you set up Zoom calls, or?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Zoom. I work from home and I do most of my work over Zoom. I will go to the occasional event, maybe a couple of times a year, but I don't really go out. I don't go out and traditionally network. Um, but I like Zoom coffees. I like having coffee with people, that sort of thing.
God, there's so many options. Lindsay will be loving this. She'll be saying, God, I don't have to go to that. I don't have to go on the train down to London. I don't have to, do all these exhausting things that require me to be in bed for 2 days afterwards. I can just do a really nice half-hour chat with somebody on Zoom and work from there. It's so easy.
Totally. I used to send a lot of handwritten cards. I think like get it some nice letterpress cards made and writing handwritten notes, I think is really valuable.
Such a good idea. Or send somebody a book. I've just finished reading
Yeah.
this book and I thought you might enjoy it, or something that you saw that they were talking about. Mind you, that sounds a bit creepy, like you've been stalking them. I mean, there's a line, isn't there? You've got to be a bit careful, if I unleashed myself in any way, I'd just look like I was stalking people all the time, like being weird. But Lindsay's okay.
Yeah, Lindsay's okay. I have sent people books. I definitely
Oh,
do that.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So it wasn't a weird suggestion, people. We're okay.
It's not
We're
weird.
okay.
Yeah, totally.
Love that. Oh, it's great. Honestly, and I think it's true. It does help you stand out in the sea of sameness if you just make that little bit more effort. And if you're an illustrator, surely you can put your beautiful artwork on a beautiful printed, maybe like a nice sort of bit of embossed card and put it in the post. Maybe even get one of those wax things, if it's ethical. Do you know what I mean? There's just so many things you could do to stand out because nobody does it. Not a lot of people do it.
Yeah, it's so true.
So we're going to wrap this up. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know lots of people will have benefited from this because you've completely kind of made them think, and there'll be people scribbling, hopefully, down lots of notes. What is the one thing Lindsay can do now after this chat that, can start the ball rolling and get her thinking completely, in a fresh way about her business and how she markets herself?
I think she can think about, just going back to this idea of visioning, like one, how does she want to be spending her days? What does that really look like? And the more detailed you can get when you're visioning, the better, which, by the way, I was just making a vision board in like May, and I put Oasis on my vision board in May before they announced their tour. And then I just bought my Oasis tickets on Friday.
You got them because we were talking about this last week and they went on sale after me. Oh, yeah. That's great. Congratulations.
But I think like when I talk about visioning, like really specific, like does Lindsay want to get up every day and walk her dog and only illustrate for 3 hours a day on these types of projects? And she wants to work independently, or she does want an assistant, like really going into detail about what that day looks like, what it feels like, how she feels in that day is going to help her have a realization of like, okay, well then this is the type of work I'm looking for. And once she has the realization about that, then she starts thinking about, well, then who do I need to be engaging with? And that will start to lead her down that whole path that we just sort of unraveled for her, like identifying those people, thinking about how to speak to them, and thinking about how she can connect with them.
Beautiful. And you know what? It's powerful because it puts her back in control of her own destiny.
Oh, 100%. And then at the end of the week, if she wants to celebrate by dancing on TikTok and because she loves it, like by all means, do it. Go for it. I love it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Holly. This was fantastic. And I'll leave all your details in the show notes because honestly, I think people would really benefit from. Have you got another couple of classes coming up that people might be interested in?
Yeah. So my big business growth class launches in January of 2025. Ooh. So that's really the one where we do everything: visioning, financial planning, marketing, sales, all of the things. So, and I really appreciate you having me, Katie. It was such a pleasure and super fun.
Oh, thank you so much. And I will leave all those details in the show notes. Business growth for creative entrepreneurs. It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Have a good afternoon.
That's it for this week's episode of the Creative Boom podcast. I hope you've enjoyed hearing from Holly Howard and found her approach as inspiring as I have. It's refreshing to know there are alternatives to the relentless pressure of chasing algorithms. And I hope today's conversation has given you some valuable insights on how you can find success, but on your own terms. If you want to learn more about Holly's work or her upcoming course in January, Business Growth for Creative Entrepreneurs, be sure to check out the show notes for links. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow creatives. You can even write to us at letters@creativeboom.com and tell us what you think. Also, a quick reminder, we've got The Spark coming up this Thursday, our new bite-sized bonus episode. So be sure to tune in for that for a little bit more inspiration. Until then, have a great week.